Okay, so in this video I want to talk a little bit about micro dwarf tomatoes. I'm going to do a video about tomatoes and the types of tomatoes there are, but in this video I kind of want to focus a little bit on micro dwarf tomatoes and just kind of explain to you a little bit about what a micro dwarf tomato is. Okay, so in general you have regular tomatoes, you know, the regular size, they grow 8, 9, 10 feet tall. You have those kind of tomatoes. Then you have what's known as bush tomatoes. Some people refer to those as determinate tomatoes, but they're generally bush tomatoes. Or they're also referred to as dwarf tomatoes. Then you have what's known as micro dwarf tomatoes. Now, micro dwarf tomatoes are not supposed to get too much bigger than, say, 9, 10 inches at best. In fact, the world's smallest micro dwarf tomato plant there is the micro tom, which I still didn't get seed for. I ordered seeds and they were the wrong seeds. But the micro dwarf is the world's smallest tomato because that plant is the true descent of that plant is not supposed to get too much bigger than 6 inches. It puts out maybe 3 or 4 small cherry-sized tomatoes, and then that's it. That's all it does. I don't know if it dies or whatnot because I haven't had the seeds to experiment with it. But there are many, many other micro dwarf tomato varieties, and here's just a few of them that I bought. That I'm going to bring these in for the winter, and I'm going to grow them indoors because I really need tomatoes in the winter, and I'm getting really tired of buying the store tomatoes because the flavor of these things are just, they're starting to make me sick almost. So I need something that I got to be able to eat something that I grow and that I know what it's growing in. I know the quality of soil. I know it's not being sprayed with pesticides and all kinds of other junk. So I need to grow my own tomatoes. So that's why I'm going into the micro dwarf varieties for indoor grow under lighting. We'll see how they do. They may live, they may not live. And generally these kind of tomatoes, these small tomatoes, generally if you keep them out of an area where the blight is really prevalent, they generally don't want to get blights. So they will pretty much stay blight free for you. But if you put them in an area where all the other tomatoes are loaded with blight and you plant them among them, yeah, it's going to get blight. So in general, these smaller tomatoes, the determinants, the dwarfs, the bush tomatoes, the micro dwarfs, these tomatoes are less likely to get the blights, or they handle the blights a little bit better. And that's my observation. I don't know that for sure, but believe me when I tell you, I know about blight, and these tend to not get as blighty. But here's a couple of varieties that I'm growing. This is the yellow balcony micro dwarf tomato. Then I think this is called the Pinocchio micro dwarf. Then the Flora Gold basket micro dwarf. And the Florida Petite micro dwarf. Now, some of these micro dwarfs, even though they call them micro dwarfs, I've read the descriptions on them. Some of them say they can get as big as 12 inches. To me, that's not a micro dwarf tomato, but some people consider 12 inches a micro dwarf tomato. So I'm not saying that it's not, but the Tiny Tim tomato, for example, would be considered a micro dwarf at that point, but it's really not because it's considered a dwarf tomato. So I don't really consider 12 inches a micro dwarf. I would say 8 to 10 inches is probably 10, maybe 10 and a half. You're really splitting hairs. That would still keep you in that micro dwarf range. But it's also the growing behavior of the micro dwarf tomato plant that really makes it a micro dwarf. It's not just the height, it's the growing behavior. Micro dwarf tomatoes like the Red Robin, for example, you'll see those in Lowe's. Those are micro dwarfs. Those plants don't get too much bigger than 7 or 8 inches, but you could see the leaf structure is very crowned and very kind of gnarly and curled up. And that's the nature of what a micro dwarf tomato should look like. They shouldn't really look like this. This is a bush tomato, and these tomatoes shouldn't get much more than, say, 20 inches, maybe 2 feet. You know, if you're really growing in good condition, it'll probably get 2 feet. But in small pots, they really shouldn't get too much bigger than, I would say, probably 16 inches or something for these tomatoes, because they're in small pots, they're growing tight together. But that's a regular dwarf tomato. The micro dwarf tomatoes, the leaves will tend to get really cupped and curled under. They look like they got a disease. That's not a disease. That is just the way this type of plant grows. Alright, so we got some started. I'm going to do some future videos on these varieties as we get closer towards the end of the year. I'm not worried about getting fruit on these by the end of the year because I'm going to bring them in for the winter, and if they fruit indoors, the more the better. So I just wanted to give you an introduction to what micro dwarf tomatoes are. Alright, so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.